It should be loud because today is a celebration and it's a culmination of many, many days and years of work and sacrifices by many of the people we know and the generosity of many people as well. And while we are here to dedicate this marvelous acreage, what it is and what it will be, and the opportunities it presents to learn, to offer solution, and to forge new science that will benefit our collective efforts on behalf of the environment, it is in fact a day that began many years ago. In 1999, Mary Farley Ames Lee, a 1938 graduate of then Longwood College, determined to gift this magnificent Hall Springs farm to Longwood. It was then, and it remains today, an act of significant generosity and vision. It is a gift that will endure for the very long term, for the benefit of Longwood's citizen leaders, for the Northern Neck, and for our Commonwealth at large. And for that, we remain forever appreciative. In formulating that gift, Mary Farley Ames Lee was very careful. She was deliberate, she was wise, and she was prudent. How so? Well, she sought the advice of local counsel. Nearby in Warsaw, Tayloe Murphy had established his law practice, focusing, as most of you know, on estate planning and wills and trusts. And while we unfortunately lost Tayloe just a few short weeks ago, like in so many of his endeavors, whether they were legal, as a legislator, or as Secretary of Natural Resources, Tayloe put his mark on this property in a very profound way, as he guided Mary Farley Ames Lee in her donation of this magnificent 662-acre parcel to Longwood University, and did so in a manner that ensured its natural asset for the very long term. Oh, Bowtied Tayloe, we miss you, but we're indebted to you for your many contributions to sustain not just this property, but the entirety of our natural resources of the Commonwealth. I'm always mindful of your admonitions over the years that what happens on the land has a very profound impact on water quality. Our commitment to you, sir, to your legacy, is that this property will be managed, sustained, improved, and enjoyed by generations to come, and that Glebes and Ames Creek shall run clean to the Potomac and ultimately to your beloved Chesapeake Bay. To Longwood University, which has contributed to this day for many years, this property could have been just a nice asset or perhaps a retreat, but the leadership of this university saw it very differently. It was to be an opportunity for continued learning, for hands-on opportunity, for scholarship, for exploration, and for the growth and the maturation of students as they went forth to become our citizen leaders of tomorrow. What has transpired here through sheer determination is truly amazing. We have living shorelines. You rode through the wetland stream mitigation banks as you came in today. There's archaeological work going on and forestry stewardship. It's actually simply amazing, in no small part to the leadership of the university. So we've enjoyed many great partners in all of those endeavors and are truly grateful for their contributions. And so to the university leadership, and the faculty, the staff, and the students, we owe you a sincere thanks for the efforts, and more importantly, for the things to come. To our local community partners, our planning district, schools, community college, your steadfast support and encouragement has been a huge and a very enduring assist. We would not be here today to honor Governor Baliles were it not for the patience and the graciousness of the Baliles family. As we explored the possibilities that become reality today, the family has been inquisitive, positive, but more importantly, dedicated. I cannot tell you how personally rewarding and terrific it was to visit this property some months back, to share with the family and to forge a shared vision for this center. It's a vision that today becomes the role and the responsibility of this facility to implement and carry that legacy. The families pitched in every respect, from adding their voice today in planning, but with also tremendous and careful vision for what will soon be a newly minted Baliles Center, a center for education and for the environment. So many, many thanks to you for your enthusiasm and for sharing your suggestions on making this a true testament to the legacy of Governor Baliles. I also want to thank former First Lady Jeannie Baliles for being with us today and sharing these events. You served this Commonwealth with distinction as First Lady, and we appreciate that greatly. In fact, your leadership continues today in your creation and sustaining of the Virginia Literacy Foundation, which likewise contributes to the important value of education. You too have made a positive and a lasting difference, and for that, we're all very grateful. To the students and the educators gathered with us today, and those still in Farmville, it's important to recognize you as well, for it's you, and you alone, that will be the beneficiaries of today's events, of the gifts of Mary Farley Ames Lee, the work of Taylor Murphy, the commitment of the Baliles family, the legacy of Governor Baliles, and yes, the success of this facility. I ask only that you be mindful of the years of effort and the thoughtfulness for those who have come before. Use this facility. Use it to discover, to examine the opportunities opened up for you by these doors, to use your wisdom and your learning and to go make a difference. What I can tell you with certainty is this: you will both succeed and fail. And while everyone prefers success, no, Tony, you can't tell the story. Failure happens. It's simply a fact of life. But I'll also tell you, at the Gerald L. Baliles Center for Environmental Education, what really matters is that you do your very best, that you do it not for self-acclaim, but to make this facility, this university, and this Commonwealth a better place. Initiate change where change is needed. Foster that collaboration that's so important. Give space to those who do not agree with you. Practice civility. And do it all with one very simple goal in mind, because it's simply the right thing to do and holds promise for a better tomorrow. To those who have sustained this dream financially over the years, a heartfelt appreciation. Without you, none of this happens. And one final word of thanks, and it's on a more personal note, and this is where I'll probably lose it. I want to thank Governor Baliles. I had the honor and the pleasure and the privilege of working with Jerry Baliles as a delegate, as Attorney General, and then as governor. I'm sure it's this way with many who've had those opportunities, but it's not like you're an employee. You're immediately friends and colleagues, and we were collaborative as a result of that, and I think, in some cases, even accomplishing. More than once, I would refer to some aspect of, quote, his administration, and every time he would turn to me without fail and say, John, our administration. That's just the way he was. To be appointed by Jerry Baliles to be the first Secretary of Natural Resources for the Commonwealth of Virginia was truly one of the highest honors of my life. Perhaps only second to being granddaddy, but I threw that in for the kids because I expect it now. He was and remains a significant factor in my life. He was my mentor. He was a teacher, and in so many, many ways he taught. He taught the value of preparation, of hard work, of strategic thinking, of civility and disagreement, and he taught what it means to govern. So I'm so appreciative for so many from our cabinet that are here today. I see them out there to share this day and to honor our partner and our leader. Most of us really consider this a family reunion, for that's the spirit with which Jerry Baliles led us, and for which we were very much delighted to be a part. Many of that cabinet are here today to share this day of this dedication, and on their behalf and on behalf of senior administration officials during that time, I am pleased to announce that we've created a seed money gift to kickstart the next building here at the Baliles Center in the amount of $35,000. Thank you all. So once again, many, many thanks to you all for being here on behalf of Longwood, and now finally, the main event. Momentarily, we'll hear from my good friend and rector of Longwood University, Pia Trigiani. Pia, as some of you might know, is a longtime friend. She's a former law partner of mine, and as I read recently in Virginia Business, apparently a living legend. But the truth is, I didn't need Virginia Business to tell me that. I knew that long before. Following Pia's comments and reading of the formal resolution of the Board of Visitors, we'll hear from my good friend and the president of Longwood University, Taylor Reevely IV. President Reevely's first Board of Visitors meeting was my last as a member of that board. I knew Taylor, guess how? Through Jerry Baliles. We got to know one another even better at that meeting and over the years. At that fateful first encounter, we retreated to a facility on the James River, and the agenda changed very quickly as a hurricane lowered the boom on that place. I can tell you this, there's nothing like confinement, no electricity, and no running water to forge important partnerships. Second bush on the left, Taylor. For our second reflection, we'll hear from Attorney General Anthony F. Troy, another very significant factor in my life and a very long-time close personal friend of the governor. Their relationship began many, many years back when they both were young attorneys in the Office of the Attorney General serving with Andy Miller. And it just so happens, amazing, both rose to be Attorney Generals of this great Commonwealth. And our third reflection will come from the Honorable Jonathan Baliles, former member of the Richmond City Council, but more importantly, the son of Governor Baliles. And Jonathan will share his thoughts and reflections for the family. So ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you and welcome. I'm now honored to welcome the Honorable Ralph S. Northam, the 73rd Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, a proud native son of Virginia's Eastern Shore, and certainly no stranger to fostering environmental stewardship and the commitment to Virginia's natural resources and the Chesapeake Bay, every inch of which I think he has fished. Governor.
Thank you, sir. How you doing? Thank you for your words. You all please be seated. Thank you so much. Wow. It is great to be back in rural Virginia. And John, thank you so much for your just really powerful words and insight and just refreshing our memory about all the wonderful things that occurred during Governor Baliles' administration, and to the staff that had the privilege and pleasure of working with him. Thank you so much for joining us today. John, I'm impressed, and I commend you all for your generosity. The $35,000 from cabinet secretaries. My first thought was you all must have got paid a lot more back then than my cabinet secretaries, but I'm happy that you all could help out. And to President Reevely, it's always great to be with you, Taylor, who is a friend to all of us, but certainly has been a friend of mine, and the leadership that he has provided at Longwood University. And here we sit on a satellite campus of Longwood University, and we are truly fortunate and blessed in Virginia to have such great colleges and universities, certainly Longwood being one of them and touching many lives. But Taylor, thank you for all that you do for your leadership at Longwood. And it's great to see so many friends. This is, I hope, a reunion for a lot of you. And I know that there are too many to name, but I did want to recognize members of the Baliles family. And I know many people here who were very close with Governor Baliles. And it is really a testament to his impact and legacy that we are all here today for this occasion. When I started my term as governor, as John said, the 73rd governor, and actually even before then, I made some trips to Charlottesville to visit with Governor Baliles, but he really became a mentor to me, and I'm sure to a lot of us who are present today, and especially Longwood's current president, Taylor Reevely. In our conversations, it was clear to me that he was deeply dedicated to making sure that rural Virginia and its concerns and challenges were never forgotten. In his gentle yet persuasive manner, he spoke of the importance of transportation. He always reminded me of that, to the Southwest, and stewardship of Virginia, including conservation and protection of our environment. I was pleased just several days ago to be in Patrick County, his birthplace, for the expansion of Route 58 at Lover's Leap. I'm sure most of you all have been there, but a beautiful, beautiful setting, that being a $300 million investment that his vision back in the mid-'80s actually started. Now, as many of you probably know, I grew up in Onancock. I always tell it's just south of Chincoteague. Everybody's heard of the wild ponies, but over on Virginia's eastern shore. And the Chesapeake Bay was literally my backyard. And my brother and I, along with our friends, spent most of our childhood swimming, crabbing, fishing, and sailing in its waters. As I like to say, if there was anything that could be done on the Chesapeake Bay, I took part in that. And John, I listened to your comments, and I have fished on many parts of the bay, but I intend to fish on more parts of the bay come January. But the point here, not to digress, after I went away to school, which was in the late 70s, I started noticing changes on my visits home. The grasses began to vanish. The fish and crabs that I had grown up with that were so plentiful were fewer and fewer, and the Chesapeake Bay was literally dying before our very eyes. And that really did not start turning around until Governor Baliles' administration. He led efforts to create the 1987 Chesapeake Bay Agreement, getting commitments from other watershed states to reduce pollution, and we continue to have great cooperation from our neighboring states. He also championed the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act to improve land management practices right here in Virginia. And as has been said, thanks for that work also goes to Delegate Taylor Murphy, who spearheaded that act in the General Assembly. Both Taylor and Governor Baliles really set Virginia's course to protect the environment in the Bay, and both are much missed. And as John, who has also, John Daniels, who has also just given so much to our Commonwealth, it needs to be, I think, reminded of you all that he was the first Secretary of Natural Resources, and the foundation that he started with Governor Baliles' administration has really set in motion all of the things that we have been able to accomplish in the years since. And I just wanted to comment briefly that in our administration, we have worked to continue that legacy of protecting our cherished Chesapeake Bay. We have developed a strong science-based clean water blueprint that will reduce nutrient pollution and account for the impacts of climate change. We passed legislation requiring livestock to be fenced out of streams in Virginia's Bay tributaries. Phosphorus, which leads to algae blooms, was taken out of fertilizers, and now fertilizer must be applied according to an approved plan. We're doing that in partnership with farmers and food producers, supporting agriculture best practice management to reduce excess nutrients flowing into our rivers and streams. We have taken steps to clean up older wastewater treatment plants, upgrade stormwater infrastructure, and restore oyster reefs. And the good news is, and this is what we all should be so proud of, and this is personal for me, but now when I visit the Bay, I can see that the efforts that were started by Governor Baliles' administration are paying off. And as probably you all know, Pam and I enjoy getting out on the water. We enjoy kayaking, and we see that the grasses are coming back, and so are the oysters, the crabs, and the fish, and that's good news for Virginia. And that is thanks to the work of so many partners over the years, and it is also thanks to the protections set in motion by the vision and actions of Governor Baliles. The best way to continue to protect our environment is to make sure that we're teaching the young people how important it is. Longwood's strong teacher preparation and science programs play a vital role in producing a new generation of environmental scientists and educators. We are all thankful to Longwood University for an environmental education center right here on the northern neck, so close to the Potomac, and it will literally touch many lives. Nor can I imagine a more fitting tribute to the legacy of Governor Gerald Baliles than to name this environmental education facility after him. This is yet another great day for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you. We're honored by your presence here today. The governor was in my part of the state just yesterday, and he taught the governors of other states how to say Appalachia.
Yeah.
Good lesson. On behalf of the Board of Visitors of Longwood, thank you to the Baliles family for allowing us to honor Governor Baliles in this way. This place, Hell Springs Farm, is a true reflection of the governor's work, his commitment to the natural resources of this great commonwealth that he loved and served, selflessly, strategically, and with tremendous vision. Like Joan of Arc, the patron hero of Longwood, the governor was bold and fearless, particularly when the focus of his attention was on the E's: education, environment, and economic development. The governor was a man of ideas, big ideas, that he conceived and then guided to implementation. Many of us here today are the byproduct of his guidance to implementation technique. Like the governor, I went to see the governor when I had a big role to play, and he shared his wisdom, and I still work hard to meet his expectations, because he expected those to whom he entrusted his ideas to implement those ideas. It was part of his plan to educate and mentor, and it worked. We know better how to implement because of our good fortune to have known him, worked with him, worked for him. So this idea to name this treasure, entrusted to Longwood by a faithful alumnus, is, we believe, consistent with and a testament to his ideas and great vision for education and the environment and the economy. The idea of naming the center at Hell Springs Farm in Governor Baliles' name is the brainchild of and developed by the Longwood University Real Estate Foundation, led by our MC, John Daniel. Today's John's birthday. I think he wanted a birthday present.
Best birthday ever.
John's love and devotion to the governor bring us here today for this grand Baliles reunion. A former member of the Longwood Board of Visitors, John presented his idea to name the Baliles Center at the Board of Visitors meeting on September 10th. And I see some of my colleagues from the board are here, and I'm grateful that you're here too to celebrate this important day. The board unanimously adopted a resolution, which I am now pleased to share with you. It's a lot of whereases, so get ready. Whereas Gerald L. Baliles was a visionary citizen leader who was driven throughout his public service as an assistant attorney general, deputy attorney general, member of the Virginia House of Delegates, attorney general, and then governor, to promote and sustain the valuable resources of the Commonwealth, both human capital and natural. Whereas Gerald L. Baliles, upon whom Longwood bestowed an honorary doctorate in 1986, respected and understood the value and importance of education, recognizing that education is the great equalizer, essential to the enrichment of a life well lived and the foundation for developing and sustaining a strong economy. Whereas Gerald L. Baliles was an advocate for the environment, establishing the first cabinet-level secretariat to support and foster protection of the tremendous natural resources of the Commonwealth. And whereas under his leadership as governor, the 1987 Chesapeake Bay Agreement and the 1988 Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act were adopted, landmark actions in support of conservation. And whereas the Board of Visitors of Longwood University believes that his commitment to the Commonwealth and the environment should be recognized and developed at Hull Springs Farm, dedicated to his devotion to learning and the environment, a place for furthering the education of citizen leaders who, like he, will work to sustain the natural resources of our great Commonwealth. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Visitors of Longwood University that the research and educational facilities at Hull Springs Farm in the environmentally rich Northern Neck region of the Commonwealth be named and forever known as the Gerald L. Baliles Center for Environmental Education at Hull Springs. On this, the 10th day of September in the year 2021, in the 183rd year of Longwood University. Thank you again to the Baliles family. And thank you, John Daniel, for hatching this extremely brilliant idea to honor a great man for whom we all have great affection. Thank you.
Well, to use one of his phrases, this feels like old home week. Being together with so many here that have toiled and wrought and thought with GLB. And this is a banner day for Longwood, and it is a special honor for all of us to have you with us, Governor Northam, to mark the celebration day. We've dreamed for the better part of 2 decades about how to fulfill the potential of this Edenic place, which Mary Farley Ames Lee of the great class of 38 bequeathed through the stewardship of the alma mater with the counsel of Taylor Murphy, who we do dearly wish were with us now. John Daniel has long been the godfather of Hull Springs in his various Longwood incarnations. Better put, he has perhaps simply been the godfather of Longwood. So it's especially sweet to see this triumphant day that honors our great friend Gerald L. Baliles here. And with Arlene McDermott and Rosemarie Owen in timeless fashion helping fit it all together, the planning with family and dear friends has been part of the joy. Thank you. Pia and John together are capable of grand machinations, as we can see. And you can easily see why Longwood students cherish this place. And in the altered rhythm of the pandemics, they have not even gotten to be here yet with the new facilities. This is truly the grand opening. The pilgrimage here from campus along 360 is a well-worn path. Sherry Swenson, doubtless the record holder. Bill Walsh, Helen Warner Burke, Louise Waller, Lara Smith cheering her on. And of course, it's primed for more and more and more energetic activity as we move past COVID. And Longwood itself, somehow, is emerging stronger through these difficult years for us all. Our endowment is in the midst of cresting over 100 million, more than doubling over the decade. Our enrollment last year grew in the teeth of COVID, in the face of contraction nationwide. Our great Farmville hero, Barbara Johns, will soon, amazingly, be enshrined in the U.S. Capitol with George Washington. Our new core curriculum, with democracy as its North Star, Civite, a fancy Latin name, is about to graduate its first seniors this spring. Though much is taken, much abides. I think firmly when the histories of this time are written, Virginia itself will stand out for how the Commonwealth has navigated the storm. Though sorely tested, gravely tested, goodwill, financial savvy, vision for the common good, and a doctor's care in public health have been the hallmarks of these crisis years for all of us. Thanks to you, Governor Northam. This banner day is also, of course, a powerfully sentimental one. I was feeling pretty good before I started. The time warp of COVID does make it feel like the 65th governor could walk around the corner right now, although he would never be late, or that he might call very soon with that idea or connected dot that puts everything in focus like usual. Though, of course, October 2019, remarkably, was 2 years ago. In ways that we knew, but even still didn't fully comprehend, he was the animating force binding so many shared aspirations. When the cohorts and alumni from his varied, decorated regiments, initiatives, offices, enterprises, schemes, and phalanxes gather, we instantly still are talking about Gerald L. Baliles. What would the governor think? What would he do? What piece of history would he be connecting to think about the future? Foot up on the desk, pen in hand, what's the next idea? The Gerald L. Baliles Center for Environmental Education at Hull Springs. I think that works, he would say. This would all prick at his genuine modesty, modesty cloaked in plenty of gubernatorial self-confidence. But this would all deeply delight him. My sense through the years, with all he had seen and known, my sense is that 4 places put his soul in harmony, especially. Jefferson's haunts were 2, the Capitol and Charlottesville. Jefferson was the iconic Virginian of old he was most drawn to. And one afternoon, a long time ago now, we somehow found ourselves talking about Jefferson's touching letter to Madison near the end, in which he asked of his friend, "Take care of me when dead." And that somehow led to a classic Baliles joke. You know, Taylor, a time capsule might be nice, a simple one. On the outside, just in big letters, BALILES. And on the inside, just a little card that says, "Rhymes with smiles." He loved those Jeffersonian places. His soul was also in deep harmony in his beloved native South Side. He loved the way the Blue Ridge manifests so abruptly in Patrick. The black Cadillac loved the wide lanes of 360 and 58. But it was the shores and waters of the Chesapeake, to which he had put such labor and care, that gave him an easy sense of freedom. He could be with his friends on the water, who could tease him as His Excellency, be with his family, while letting his mind drift on some new work of noble note. To everything there is a season. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. May we bear his name well here. May the great waters of the Commonwealth offer peace and renewal, and offer inspiration, generation to generation, to seek a newer world.
Quite a hard act to follow. But Governor, I appreciate your presence. President Reevely, Rector Pietrigiani, an old friend, the Baliles family, of course, Robin, Danielle, Laura, Jonathan, former First Lady Jeannie Baliles, distinguished guests, friends, and especially John Daniel. I now understand how to get a birthday party together. Of course, today we're here to dedicate a center to a remarkable individual, former governor of the Commonwealth, a great thinker, a visionary, and a person who I had the privilege of calling a friend, and so appreciative of being able to talk about that friend here today. Jerry and I started our legal careers together in the mid-'60s, serving then Attorney General Robert Y. Button, known as Senator Button throughout his career, even as Attorney General. In 1970, when Andrew Miller became Attorney General, Jerry and I were assigned various tasks in the office. I was assigned to deal with litigation and consumer protection. Jerry took over each and every state agency throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, especially those dealing with the environmental issues, air, water, waste, Department of Environmental Quality. He was tasked and did well in implementing what is called the practice of preventive law, ensuring agencies' practices were in compliance with law and best practices, and ensuing some savings and litigation costs, which at the time, Governor, were budgeted in a, quote, sum sufficient. I doubt if that's in any of your budgets today. During this time, our friendship expanded to include a number of traditions, including, let me mention just a few. And because of what Taylor mentioned, let me talk about Rhymes with Smiles. When Jerry first ran for office, it was very difficult for people to understand how to pronounce his name. We all know it now. But when he ran for office in the House of Delegates, his campaign slogan was "Vote for Baliles, rhymes with smiles." He won. And the next day after election, he was walking down Main Street and an individual passed him and said, "I know you, I voted for you. I can't remember your name, but I know it rhymes with smiles." So Jerry would make this presentation every time to groups of individuals. And at one time, I recall vividly, we were in New York City, a breakfast fundraiser with investment bankers. And Jerry would make this point of his name and then point out that though he was pleased that the individual had some association, rhymes with smiles, he would appreciate it and if it would be better if you would know the names. And then he would go around, and in this time there were 85 to 100 people in this room. He had met them for the first time that morning, and he shook each a hand, and then he went around and he started naming each and every individual in the room. And people got quieter and quieter, waiting for him to miss a name. And he went around and he came to one individual, and he hesitated and hesitated. And people started snickering a little. And he said, "I cannot remember your name, but you came in late, didn't you?" Some other traditions that we enjoyed: an annual post-election lunch, the Wednesday following every November election, where a group would get together, discuss the election results, and make forecasts for the year ahead, and discuss your forecasts. That group still exists and has been expanded. Another tradition, one I miss, Jerry and I, together every year on Christmas Eve, the 24th, would get together at lunch, have a Bloody Mary, and then do our Christmas shopping together on the 24th every year. I remember vividly when he was governor-elect, and I walked in and the EPU said, "Why are you here?" I said, "We're here to do our Christmas shopping." And we did. And when Jerry moved to Charlottesville and I happened to be in Wintergreen, we continued that for over 40 years. That tradition, of course, unfortunately ended. As life goes on, I went on to private practice in D.C. and New York. Jerry helped on with the office. He left the office and ran for the House of Delegates. I returned to take his role in helping to run the office for Andy Miller. And with Jerry's help, I was elected by the General Assembly to become Attorney General. I subsequently helped Jerry become Attorney General, and then become the 65th Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. There, as we know, his attention and achievements included transportation, education, and especially the environment. Including his attention to the Eastern Shore and the Chesapeake Bay. He emphasized that while being governor. That focus on the Bay in 1987 expanded the then 1984 Chesapeake Bay Agreement to encompass and protect not only water quality, but the Bay's, quote, living productivity. Typical Jerry, always thinking steps ahead. In an October 2006 address given at the University of Richmond School of Law, Jerry, then director of the Baliles Center for Public Affairs at the University of Virginia, gave a major address regarding the Bay, its past, and its needs in the future. Parroting James Michener, who wrote of the custom of referring to the Eastern Shore, always with capital letters, as if it is and was a special place, Jerry started his address describing the Bay as a, quote, national treasure and resource of worldwide significance, mentioning its needs and its original explorations 400 years ago by Captain John Smith. Now, Jerry and I always try to one-up each other. And in due respect to my colleague, he didn't go back far enough when he talked about 400 years ago. In fact, it was 35,500,000 years ago, give or take 300,000 years, that a bolide meteor traveling at 37 miles per second struck near Governor Northam's Northampton region. Specifically, the center was Cape Charles, creating a hole 53 miles in diameter, eviscerating itself, causing debris and fire until extinguished by a magna tsunami which engulfed land up to the Blue Ridge Mountains. This happened on a Wednesday, we're told, in October. First Wednesday, just like today. And let me emphasize, if I may, as suggested by a friend, I got this information from a good friend who's a scientist at NASA. At least any of you, especially Bill Wilson, thought I was speaking from memory. So now we dedicate this center, knowing that research can go back in time beyond Captain Smith's first voyage. For example, NASA has key core drilling samples that perhaps can be used and viewed by students and educated and see how they impact the bay. There are known rock samples from the bolide explosion that have the same chemical makeups that exist in Texas and in Georgia. Maybe they can educate us about the bay. Governor John Daniels suggested it had to be a political line in there too. These are questions I know my friend Jerry would want and would want to ask. Jerry closed his October 06 address by pointing out that the Bay region, the cradle of America as he called it, that the costs for restorations for the Bay are large, billions, but the price of inaction is even larger, end quote. Action is needed, still needed, as recently evidenced by the actions of Governor Northam and Maryland Governor Hogan meeting to discuss still the Bay. Work and research must continue. But my friend, I trust you rest easy, knowing that now an environmental education center in your name will continue this Commonwealth's quest and this nation's hopefully unrelenting efforts, pooling, as you described in your 2006 address, our resources, energies, and our talents, and now knowing that the research from your center for the Chesapeake Bay and National Treasure will contribute to those efforts. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you, Governor. It is a special privilege to have you here. You have probably spent more time in or on the Bay than the other 72 governors before you. Thank you, Taylor, President Reevely, Pia, for reading that wonderful resolution, and I'd like to give a special shout out in the back. Raise your hand to Sherry Swenson. She is seems to be the quarterback of this facility. I know that Mom and Laura and Robin and Danielle are all very honored to be here, and I want to give a special thanks to Tony and John. I'd say something about Tony, but everything we talk about is protected by attorney-client privilege. And I really want to thank John, who has put his heart and soul into this endeavor. And while I was preparing for this day, I came across an email that he had sent Dad a few weeks before he passed away. And John had written, along with Preston Bryant, a op-ed that was published statewide, and it was signed by all living secretaries of natural resources. And it was a very, very heartfelt email thanking him for all that he had done. And I obviously will not share that, but I will share at the end of the email, John wrote, P.S. Please don't find any typos. This facility and this place already is and always will be special to me and our family. Not only are we here to dedicate the facility in Dad's name, which could not be more appropriate, coming to this part of the state is always special to me and unleashes a flood of memories. I spent a lot of time in the Northern Neck growing up and know this area very well. Just last weekend, I was a little further down the road at Gwen's Island at a friend's oyster roast and eating more oysters than I could possibly count. And at one point, he really started to get worried that he was going to run out. But 40 years ago, everybody was worried that the oysters were going to run out and disappear forever. But that would change. Jerry Baliles would never be mistaken for the movie star Paul Newman, but they shared one rare and distinguishing trait. In the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, starring Newman and Redford, the two are riding through the Badlands of Utah, and Newman remarks, "I have vision, but the rest of the world wears bifocals." And Dad certainly had vision, although he would never admit this to anyone, and he certainly probably wouldn't even think it. His vision was evident in the planning and strategy and hard work that he put into everything. He started with always knowing that education was the key to unlock any door. It took him from a farm in Patrick County to Wesleyan to UVA Law to the state capitol and the governor's mansion. During his term as governor, he saw the underused and undermarketed Port of Virginia and turned it into an economic powerhouse both in Hampton Roads and Front Royal and now in Richmond. Of course, he's well known for his trademark transportation initiative to improve roads and airports. If you have a bustling port, you need ways to move goods to markets and to people. He led international trade missions all over the world and opened doors and eyes for new and expanded businesses and jobs and connecting with different cultures. He invested and overhauled the mental health system that for decades had been in dire need of attention and funding. He also established the cabinet position of Secretary of Natural Resources and appointed John to run it. It was an idea that had been talked about in state government for a decade, but it was never realized until 1986. It was a signal, as John later wrote, quote, that both economic development and natural resources protection benefit when harmonized. As a demonstration of this goal, he supported Taylor Murphy's landmark Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act in 1988 that tied land use management practices with water quality of the bay. The act itself reads, quote, healthy state and local economies and a healthy Chesapeake Bay are integrally related. Balanced economic development and water quality protection are not mutually exclusive. Does that sound like Jerry Baliles and Taylor Murphy or what? Robin and I were down here a few months ago to tour this facility, and we had the pleasure of having lunch with Taylor that afternoon, and we miss him very much. What Dad and Taylor and John and everyone accomplished was important. The Chesapeake Bay watershed covers 64,000 square miles, which is a land to water ratio of 14 to 1. It runs from Newcastle, Virginia, along I-81 to Cooperstown, New York. It's the largest land to water ratio of any coastal water body on the planet. And it's such a unique and remarkable resource. Tony, I got my information from a different source than yours, so bear with me if it's a little off. When you add up the shoreline of the bay and all of the tidal tributaries, there are nearly 12,000 miles of shoreline, more than the entire West Coast. It's home to 18 million people and fed by 150 major rivers and streams and 100,000 smaller tributaries. Every day, 51 billion gallons of fresh water flows into the bay from some of the greatest river names on earth: the Rappahannock, the Patuxent, the Susquehanna, the Wacomico, and the Choptank. It's home to 3,600 species of plants and animals, including 348 species of finfish and 173 species of shellfish. But 40 years ago, the Chesapeake Bay was literally in dire straits. Water quality was poor, grasses were disappearing, and fishing and oyster and crab harvests were tiny fractions of what they had been just a few decades prior. Gil Grosvenor, a friend of Dad's and the chairman of the National Geographic Society, noted he would not let his son go swimming in the bay back then, and it was an example of larger issues facing our nation. He said, "The bay is a microcosm, all right, of what we have become, what we must correct, and what we have to do in the future." The 1983 Chesapeake Bay Agreement was a multi-state effort led by Governor Robb, and the framework was a great first step in recognizing action was needed. But oftentimes, the second, third, and fourth steps are the most important. This is best encapsulated by the Chesapeake Bay Agreement signed in 1987 in Norfolk. A copy of that agreement is in this building on the wall behind, inside. The agreement included 29 numeric and time-sensitive goals to monitor improvement, including reducing nutrient pollution by 40%. It also reinforced what is now known as the Chesapeake Executive Council that had mayors, governors, and federal agencies set regular meetings to ensure that the work would continue. The goals were identifiable. The process was open and transparent. There was buy-in. There was solicitation and help and for advice from residents, scientists, people who lived on or near the water, government employees that knew the regulations, and the electeds at every level who had to secure funding. To put that in perspective, and this stat blew my mind, there are almost 1,800 different local governments throughout the Bay watershed. Talk about herding cats. The Bay had not deteriorated in a decade, and it would not be brought back in a decade. But the commitment was made to meet regularly, and work would continue pursuing these goals across state lines and into future administrations, regardless of politics. There was consensus, which led to action, and that has produced results. The Bay is in much better shape than it was 40 years ago, but we still have so far to go and much more to do. The work cannot stop. This is why this facility is so important. Students that come to the Gerald L. Baliles Center for Environmental Education at Hull Springs will have the opportunity to remind themselves the importance of their work. They will be reminded that their work will be of great consequence to Virginia, our environment, and our planet. They will be reminded that the answers do not come from social media or shouting. The answers in education will come from research and study and collaboration and deliberation that this facility bearing Dad's name invites. Do your homework, strive for consensus, take action, and you will produce results and change. Today, the Bay itself is living proof that that formula works, and that is a vision worth pursuing. On behalf of our family, thank you to everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces here, and we appreciate everything that Longwood and John and Tony and the governor and Pia have done for us today. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome. No, we've done that. Okay. you have your hankies. If you notice, around the border, it asks the Gerald L. Baliles question. So what do we do about this remarkable resource, the Chesapeake Bay? And of course, it's one of those classic Jerry Baliles questions. The answer changes with time. It changes with every day. But I think what we've heard today from these fine folks that have joined us on the stage is the why we do that, and why we will get up tomorrow and ask the question, and why we get up a year from now and ask the same question, because it's that incremental steps forward that make us achieve success. So again, thank you very much for being here. We do have the faux plaque that will go in this building to unveil, and I would ask the family if they could please join me, join us up here where Larry is. Jeannie, come on up, please. Good. Wait for your mom. Oh, we're cheating. Whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready, it's your plaque. Hey. So thanks again for you all's presence, for my colleagues and friends on the stage that shared their thoughts with you. I'm very, very grateful. We ask you to join us for tours of the new laboratory facility. Make your way down to the Ames House for a few refreshments and perhaps a pop or two. But enjoy. Thank you so very much.